body knows how to do it.
It's a girl.
As we speak, every second, a woman gives birth somewhere in the world. It may sound ordinary, but for the woman living it, birth is nothing like that.
Welcome to Born to be Wild, the podcast. We call in guests from Portugal and beyond to share real birth stories and lived experiences, and to explore what maternity care really feels like on the ground.
In this podcast, we invite you to listen, question, and sometimes unlearn what pregnancy, birth, and postpartum are supposed to look like.
For us, wild means staying connected to yourself, your body, and your choices, even when systems make that difficult.
So let's begin. Today, we are doing something a little different, because today, one of your hosts is actually the guest.
Yeah, that's me. And honestly, telling your own birth story on a podcast you co-host is a bit strange, to be honest. But Aviva convinced me, and she was right. Because what happened to me is exactly the kind of story this podcast exists for.
Exactly. And Irene, you live on Santa Maria Island, which is the most southern island of the Azores. It's about 6,000 people, there is no maternity care, and a hospital on another island that weeks before you were due caught fire.
Yep, that's true. And what started as a super straightforward second pregnancy turned into something I never planned for. Because the hospital didn't feel safe anymore. And I had to make a decision in 24 hours. Plus, my midwife came flying in from Lisbon.
That's so an amazing part of the story. So, if you listen to this is a story about trusting your body when the system falls away, about plan B being more beautiful than a plan A, and about what happens when a woman really knows herself.
Thank you. I love hearing that. But it's also the story of how I ended up becoming a doula. Because that birth of my second child really changed something in me. It showed me what birth can feel like when you feel safe, supported, and also very much in charge. That's how I felt. And I really want other women to have that too and to feel that too, wherever you give birth.
So, Irene, let's start at the beginning.
Yeah, we live on the Azores and we live on a very tiny island. It's called Santa Maria and it's the most southern island, and it only has approximately 6,000 inhabitants, and that's why there is no emergency maternity care over here. There is no maternity care over
Hmm.
here at all. We have a
It
health
means like
center.
if you want to give birth, you
Yeah.
basically have to fly, right?
Exactly. We have to go to a bigger island. It's called São Miguel, and there's a hospital and even a private hospital.
So can you imagine you're already have to think about the logistic, like just the 20 minutes ride to the hospital is for everyone
Yeah.
something that can be stressful. But in your case, it's even more because you have to think about flying.
Yes, but every pregnant woman gets sent to the other island around 36 weeks.
Okay,
So
that
you're
makes sense.
already on the other islands. You don't have to take an emergency helicopter or something. You're just already on the other island. But it also means like all your ultrasounds and all your things are already on the other island as well. So, for example, with 20 weeks, your 20-week scan, you have to fly to another island to get your 20-week scan there, and then you have to fly back again. But
Okay.
for us, it's more like a bus. That's
Yeah.
more like the bus. That's the connection between islands. But hey, yeah, it can be really inconvenient indeed.
But I
Yeah.
guess it's also when you choose to live on an island, then it kind of goes with the package, right? It's like
Yeah,
you
that's true.
you just
Yeah.
get used of that way of living.
It's exactly. It's a little paradise, but hey, paradise doesn't exist, and these are the consequences as well.
So maybe let's pause for a second because I think it's also very interesting to know a little bit more about yourself, about your family. So can you tell us just where you're from? Why did you choose to move on that little island? Is it just for the sun, or were there other reasons? And also, who is part of your family today?
Yeah, well, we are a family of four today, but we're originally from Holland, and in Holland, we lived in a small city. And we moved to the woods. We got a baby over there. It was a hospital birth in Holland
You had
because
a baby in the woods.
Well, it's in the end in the hospital, but we lived in a cabin in the woods, and it was amazing. It was
Okay,
so
so
serene.
your nature family.
Yeah, yeah, but we were looking for the house was too small for the 3 of us, so we were looking for more adventure, and that's how we ended up in looking at the houses in Portugal, also Sweden, but it's a bit too cold for us during wintertime,
Not
but
not
also
the same
Portugal.
weather for sure.
Yeah, and, then we saw a house listed in the Azores, and we went to look at it, and we immediately fell in love with the island, and it was just a feeling. We can't explain it. It was just a feeling, and, like, I think 9 months later, no, 6 months later, we moved there. So packed all of our stuff, put it in a container, and with the 3 of us and the dog, we moved there. But at that time, we were already trying to conceive a second one, but I think looking back, that was of course moving to another country is quite stressful. So it took quite a bit of time, but I
And
got
ho
pregnant with my
and
second one.
your experience of pregnancy, like, for example, the first one, how was it?
Oh, really good. I love being pregnant. I really love it. It's like I feel confident and you don't have like the monthly hormonal things anymore. And it's just, I loved it. The only thing was I gave birth to Sam, my oldest, during the pandemic. So the pandemic had just started, was in April 2020. But at the same time, I really liked like the last month of pregnancy. We were living in the cabin in the woods and we were with the 2 of us. Like, we were enjoying time outside, the weather was great, and it was amazing, like, the last time. And we had a few hiccups because I had some blood loss during pregnancy, but they couldn't figure out what it was. My
Okay.
placenta was lying really low, so it might have been
Mhm.
that. So I went to the hospital quite a few times, but in Holland, it's like that. If you're, like, healthy and, you have a healthy baby in your belly, you go to the midwife, and if there's nothing wrong during pregnancy, you won't see a hospital.
Okay.
Well, I saw a hospital a couple of times, but eventually I was sent back to the midwife practice and discussed my birth plan with them.
Okay. Were you at that stage consider low risk or,
Yeah,
like,
I was low risk again.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because they couldn't find out what it was, and they were just like, "Yeah, well, maybe this is just part of your pregnancy."
Okay. And where did you end up giving birth then?
Well, we try to give it birth at home because it's very normal in Holland. Most of my friends give birth at home, and you either give birth at home in a birth center or in the hospital. Yeah, so he was like a sunny side up baby. I really like that that term.
It's a
It
nice word
sounds
to put.
really
It's a nice word.
yeah, it sounds like he's a really happy baby, and it was a very nice delivery. But it was damn. I had a lot of painful contractions, but I felt like they weren't doing anything. Like so I asked for a transfer to the hospital,
Okay.
and in Holland, there are multiple options for pain relief. So I choose to relax a little bit with some, it's called remifentanil, and
Okay.
it's like a kind of morphine. I could still walk, I could still do anything, and like in 45 minutes, was fully dilated. And I think 20 minutes after my baby boy was born.
Wow. So you didn't spend that much time in the hospital for the
No,
labor.
no, I think we were there for 2 hours and then my boy was already born. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And so then you go with this little family of three, you move to Santa Maria Island.
Yeah.
And did you try for a long time to conceive, or was that quite fast?
Yes, yes, unfortunately, yes. And it brought a lot of tears because every month getting your period again and not knowing what to do. Because with my oldest, it took us 1 month, like literally 2 weeks. We decided, and
Wow.
like bam, 2 weeks later, I had this
Here
positive
you are.
pregnancy test. So it was like, wow. So you kind of expect it to be the same the second time around, but then it took us 11 months.
Wow. Which is
And
still very okay.
it's still very normal, but at the same time, it was also frustrating getting your period every month, you know?
Of course.
But I think what really helped was finally like relaxing on the island, finding your place, everything. And when we were like fully settled, boom, I was pregnant. So
Then you
that
got
was
pregnant.
so good. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, second pregnancy, how did that one go?
This was wonderful. It was such a good pregnancy. I worked out for like 4 times, 5 times per week. I felt really healthy, really fit. I didn't have so many scans. I didn't need them. I think I didn't need them from like the inside.
You had to move to fly to São Miguel for the scan?
Yeah, yeah, but I also it was very convenient because for the first few scans I could do in Holland because I was there at the time
Yeah.
just a few times for work, and it was just with 90-20 weeks, so I could get a scan there, I could get some tests done there, and I just send them to the local health center. But it was really nice to have like this mixed care. So I had like a few dates with my midwife, but also I visited the nurse here in Santa Maria.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, it was really nice, but, everything like, the baby was super healthy, she was, like, really my first baby was, like, really, big, but she was, like, very average. My pregnancy was very average, it was, like, a smooth sailing, I loved it, and
Mm.
at first, we thought we would want to give birth in Holland, but, after a few months, I think I was, like, 22 weeks pregnant, I was like, "No, I wanna stay in the Azores, it's my home now." I also felt it was really
Yeah.
inconvenient to fly back
Yeah.
when you just gave birth and you have to fly back and you would just wanna be home, you know? So
Mm.
then we decided to give birth in the Azores.
And so at that moment, when you took that decision, did you know about the Portuguese system? Did you had some information about how it works that helps you to take that decision?
I didn't know a lot about it, to be honest. I Googled a lot and I asked a lot of people. I knew hospital births are really common, like it's the most common thing to do related to pregnancy and birth. So I was preparing for that. Like, okay, what do I want to do? And in order to really prepare myself, I hired a doula on São Miguel because there were no doulas in Santa Maria.
Mhm.
She really prepared me on what to expect in a hospital in São Miguel. But because I had such a positive experience with my first, I was not very looking up to like the experience or something. I was really positive and I was like, okay, let's do this. I'm ready.
Yeah, you were positive,
Yeah.
optimistic,
Yeah.
and you also had a good pregnancy. So I guess it also helps to
Yeah.
just
Exactly.
feel secured and grounded
Yeah.
in your in this
Yeah.
journey. And so when you had a doula, were there other practitioners that helped you through that pregnancy?
No, only the nurse here in Santa Maria. And it wasn't even a pregnancy nurse, and like she wasn't specialized in pregnancy or birth because that nurse was sick. So I was only seen by the nurse, and sometimes the doctor, the family doctor, listened to the heart tones of the baby.
Okay. So 6, 7, 8 months pass.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the pregnancy, how were you feeling?
I was feeling great. I loved it. Still working out. I spent a lot of time in nature. I hiked a lot. Well, I couldn't do like the big trails anymore, but still I felt great and I loved it. I just
Yeah,
had a
whatever.
very
Yeah.
big
Okay.
belly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But I felt really fit and up until the day of birth I walked like 15,000 steps per day and
Wow.
I worked out. Yeah, and I was just feeling highly energetic and just
It's like the
great.
pregnancy everyone would like to have. That's super
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was much better than the first one also because I was way more prepared on what to expect. Like the first one, I had some ischias problems, like the muscle on your back, it's really hurts. But now because of all the training, I could avoid those problems, and it was so good. It was
Okay.
so good to move. Yeah.
And so you were telling us earlier that because you were living on Santa Maria,
Yeah.
by 36 week, you had to fly to São Miguel and then live there for a while waiting
Yeah.
for the baby. But how does that like exactly work when you have a family and when your maybe first one is going to care, daily care? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's also highly inconvenient. So we don't have any family on the Azores, and most families from Santa Maria have family on San Miguel. They have family spread all over the
Yeah,
Azores.
they have support.
Obviously,
Mm.
yeah, we don't have that. So we rented a house close to the main city, to Ponta Delgada, And we found a babysitter who took care of Sam 3 mornings per week, so
Okay.
we could have some time for ourselves, and my husband really had to work. He works online, so he could do that. Yeah, but, like, if you have a normal job, you just get sent by the Centro de Saúde to the other islands, and, yeah, your employer pays for your leave, of course, because you can't work then.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we shipped our car, for example, because so we shipped our car from Santa Maria to São Miguel, so we had
Okay.
a car over there. Yeah, so all these kinds of stuff.
Okay, so then 36 weeks, you pack your suitcase and
Yeah,
you know that you'll be back on the island with a baby. Like
yeah, that's
that was the
really
plan, with a new
strange.
baby. So tell us about this first weeks on São Miguel. How did that go? And were you able to go through the end of your pregnancy there?
Yeah, well, we got some bad news in the week before we left because we left on a Tuesday, and the Saturday before, the news came out that the hospital on San Miguel, the public house hospital where I was supposed to give birth, caught fire, and the whole maternity ward was destroyed.
Wow.
So yeah, that was horrible. Also, for like, you can't imagine giving birth and then you have to evacuate and everything.
I
That's
cannot even imagine because
yeah.
the fire happened during a period where there was a lot of stress in the hospital, like it was crowded.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just,
Wow.
well, maternity ward is on like 24/7.
Of
So it's
course,
like,
yeah.
yeah. We didn't see like the severeness of the situation at first, and then on Sunday I got a call from the hospital in San Miguel saying like, "Oh, okay, you still have to go to San Miguel." And I was like, "Oh yeah, but because why not?" You know.
Mm,
Told me like all the care is moved to like another hospital, to the private hospital. So you just, when there's something wrong, go there. But your appointments in the hospital are canceled. I was like, okay, well, let's see. And I was like, well, I don't know what to expect anyway. So I didn't panic. I felt quite confident. And
yeah.
I was like, well, let's see.
Let's see
And they said, like,
what are
okay,
the options. You still like trusted a lot the system.
yeah. And they said, okay, you're going to get a call to reschedule your appointments because you get a few appointments in the last weeks of your pregnancy, like to monitor the baby. And I think they do a
Mm,
CTG, but you're already here. I think they do a CTG because I never had those appointments. They never called me.
okay,
And of course, that was not on purpose. I think people working really, really hard over there.
of
We had
course.
to visit the private hospital once because my baby boy had of my boy had a thing in his eye, so we had to visit the pediatrician over there, and I saw all the people working so hard to deliver the right care to all the people. So
It was a
I can
very
totally imagine.
exceptional time,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
suddenly everything has to be last minute reorganized
yeah,
and yeah, you have to make it work, and still be
exactly.
able to deliver good care to
Yeah,
everyone on the island. I can imagine the
exactly.
level of stress for the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you didn't have those CTG appointments?
No, no. But I was okay with that because I was like, yeah, well, it's my second pregnancy. I feel good. I know what to expect of birth. It's fine. Let them give priority to more severe cases, maybe. I spoke to my doula, I think in week 37. And then the severeness of the situation hit me because she was telling me, like, okay, I've been to the hospital. Husbands are not allowed in the delivery room. It's super crowded. You have to give birth
Okay.
with other women in a room. An epidural is kind of forced on you because they want everything to be calm and quiet. They give a lot of oxytocin to women just to speed up birth because they don't have a lot of space. And then that shocked me. I was almost crying. I was like, okay, this is what I had never envisioned, and this is what I don't want. Because I know when you give birth as a woman, you want to feel safe. And this felt like the least safe scenario I could have imagined.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a lot to take suddenly,
yeah,
because you picture your birth, and suddenly people are telling you, "Okay, this is how it's going to happen."
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, with your partner in such conditions, I cannot even imagine for the woman that maybe didn't have the choice how
Yeah.
hard it was to give birth in this context. And
Yeah.
so then suddenly you're told that, and did you speak with your partner? Like how did you react? Like were there any doubt, or you knew from that moment what you should do?
Well, in the same conversation, where I was nearly crying because of this news, the doula said, "Okay, I might have a plan B." And that
Mm.
plan B is that we get a midwife here from the mainland when your contractions begin or when labor begins, and she will guide you through a home birth. And I was like, that's an interesting scenario. But I think because it was a foreign country for us, like not our home country, my husband was a bit hesitant. He was like, "Yeah, well, maybe it's the most safe in the hospital, la la la," all the things partners can say
Mhm.
because they don't have the baby in their belly and they don't feel the same. It's very, very normal, I think.
Yes. Mhm.
So we talked about that a lot, and in the end, we decided, like after a day, we decided, no, let's go for that home birth, but on one condition, it has to be medically fully safe.
Yes.
So and that was also what the doula said. So, okay, when you agree on this, we're gonna get all the material necessary for like a home birth, and we're gonna fully prepare for this. So it's safe and as safe as in a hospital. And if the midwife doesn't arrive on time, we agreed upon that I'm going to the hospital.
Okay.
Yeah.
So meaning that uh, if she cannot fly,
Yeah.
then you will be the one flying back to São Miguel to give birth, right?
Well, then I would have gone to the hospital in São Miguel.
Okay, because at that point, when you say home birth, it was the home you rented on São Miguel.
Exactly. The
Yes. Okay.
Airbnb. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you didn't go back to your
No.
home
No, no,
in Santa
that
Maria.
was not possible because then you have to fly, and I was already over 36 weeks as
Yeah.
you
So
can fly.
then, okay.
I was stuck. Yeah.
And so you're taking that decision. How does your partner feel about it?
Well, he felt really good and really prepared, and we talked to the doula, and yeah, we felt really good about it. And we talked about it a lot, like what do we do in this scenario? What do we do in that scenario? But we were also like okay, let's see how it unfolds. It's our second time around. Let's
Mhm.
see. But we know we can do this, and yeah, this is gonna work. This
I
is
love
gonna
how
work.
confident you were during that process because, I mean, a lot of people could have a panic attack. It was a lot to
Yeah.
take, and you are at the end of the pregnancy. You can feel more vulnerable, but you actually feels like you took that with a lot of, yeah, just this is the way it goes, and let's adapt, and let's go to plan B. You felt quite confident.
Yes, I felt a lot of trust in my body. And I think that was different from the first birth I had. Because then I really relied on my midwife and I was like, okay, if anything happens in my body, what is happening? What is happening? And now I just read a lot of books and I listened to a lot of podcasts with birth stories. So I kind of knew what to expect and I was also flexible. Like, okay, if this is not going to work out, if there's a medical thing, let's see. Then we go to the hospital.
Yeah.
No problem. Then it's okay. But first, let's try this. Let's try. As long as it's safe, then it's fine. And my first birth took 11 hours.
Mhm.
So the midwife we contacted was, yeah, really worried that it would go faster this time.
Yeah. So this midwife, because
Yeah.
you couldn't find a midwife on the island, so
No,
you end up calling a midwife in the mainland, based in Lisbon,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And she just say yes.
She said yes. She said, yeah, well, call me when you have contractions. Well, of course, I had to tell her, like, I had to show her my files, and my documents and show her, like, this pregnancy is healthy. And the part I really liked is that she asked me, like, okay, what does your intuition say? When do you think your baby will
Mhm.
be born? And I said, well, my due date is on the 5th of June, but I think she will be there 2 or 3 days later, like on the 7th or the 8th of
Oh
June.
wow, that's what
And
your
yeah,
body was telling you.
yeah, and she said, "Okay, well, that's a nice sign." I said,
Okay.
"Yeah, like my last pregnancy was 40 weeks 1 day. I think this will be 40 weeks 2 days 3 days because that was the date I already always had in mind during my whole pregnancy.
Wow,
So we
really?
were like, let's see, let's
And
see.
so yeah, because what is atypical that usually midwife that give you birth in that setting knows you from the beginning of your pregnancy. She's the one that follow you throughout, the entire
Yeah,
time, and she knows you very well. So it was very typical in that sense that she just discovered you a few days before you were
yeah,
giving birth. Okay, so what about that date you had in mind? Were you right at the end?
yes.
Wow. Okay, so now we are 40 weeks and 2 or
Yeah.
3 days, and it's starting, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was still super calm. On my due date, we went for a big hike to a waterfall, and
Mm.
I still remember all the people like doing the same hike and were much slower, and they were looking at me like with that big belly, and I was like, yeah. And they
Who
said,
is
"How
that
far
woman?
along are you?" And I was like, 40 weeks today. But I knew like this might be the last time. So I was totally up for it, and of course, I needed to rest after. I was not that super pregnant lady, you know. Of course, you're still pregnant. So that was on my due date, and the next day, I felt like contractions were coming, and I already had some false starts the week before. And I already contacted the midwife like sometimes, but I just waited, and I you can feel as a woman when it hasn't really started yet.
Mm.
So they were a little bit worried. They said, "Yeah, but you already have like regular contractions." I said, "Yeah, but this is not the deal yet. This is not it." But
Yeah, I
on the
guess when
40
we
weeks,
gave birth the first time, then
yeah,
we know, like,
yeah,
when the actual contraction are starting to
exactly,
pick up, we recognize them.
exactly. So 40 weeks 1 day, I woke up with like light contractions, and I told my husband, "Yeah, it's gonna start now. It's slow, but it's gonna start." I lost some parts of the mucus plug, and I was like, "Yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
It's gonna start now." Then the same morning, I got a call from the hospital in Santa Maria, like, "Hey, did you give birth yet? Where are you at the moment?" And I said, "Well, I'm still in São Miguel, happily pregnant." And they said, "Okay, you should go to the hospital and get a checkup because in order to get all the documents right, so in order to get back and blah blah, you need a stamp from the doctor." So I
Okay.
said, "Okay." So I went to the emergency care in the private hospital, and
So you were in labor when you got to the hospital?
yeah, but not really. I had some small contractions, but not like,
Like
and I was
The
like,
Braxton
after that call, I
contractions?
immediately went because I was like, I have to go now because otherwise, they might keep me there.
Yeah.
So they put the CTG on me, and like after half an hour, the nurses and the gynecologists they came back and they said, "Okay, you're in labor. We're gonna keep you here."
Oh,
And I said,
wow.
"No, no, 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 no. I'm not gonna do that." "Yeah, but you have contractions. We see that on the CTG." I said, "No, no, 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 no. I'm gonna go home." And they said,
Okay.
"Yeah, but then we wanna do an internal examination on you to see how far along you are." I said, "No, I don't want that. I don't know you. I hate those exams. I remember it from my first. I really don't like it. And it's not necessary because it doesn't say anything about the progress of my birth." And
Mhm.
they started really pushing me. Like they really
So just to be clear, they wanted to see if you had already started the dilation.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I said, "No, I don't want that." Okay, so then we want to do an internal ultrasound. And because of all the books and all the information I read, I know it's not possible to see your dilation with like an internal ultrasound. So I said, "No, that's basically the same. I don't want that." Okay, then an external ultrasound. I said, "Okay, external ultrasound, that's fine. You can do
Okay.
that, but not internally. I really don't want it. I don't know you." And there were four nurses in the room and one gynecologist, and they were
Okay.
like, at a certain point, they were saying like, so they kept putting pressure on me, and that was awful. That was one of the most bad experience of my life, and I
I
started
can imagine.
crying. Yeah, I started crying, and I told him like, "Okay, please, I want to go home. Just let me go home." And they said, "Yeah, if you go home, your baby's gonna die because you're gonna give birth at home because you're already
Oh,
having
wow.
contractions."
But, like,
And oh,
everyone
and
in the room looked like did you see any supportive eyes at that point, or everyone
only the
agreed?
gynecologist, actually. The gynecologist was really supportive, but the nurses were like, "Yeah, but everybody here does that." And they were also pointing at my nationality. They said, "Yeah, but like everybody in Portugal does this. Every woman in Portugal gives birth like this." And I was like, "Why are you telling me this?" You know?
Mm.
But in
There
the
was
end,
no evidence base in what they were telling you, it was
no,
just, like, pressure.
exactly. Yeah, that was really bad.
Wait,
So in
was
the
your
end,
husband with you at that point?
no, no, he wasn't allowed in the room. There was only I was the only one who was allowed in the room, and you have to know, like everything was improvised as well. So I have great respect for the nurses and for the medical staff, because it was in an improvised room and everything, and because in the hospital, the private hospital, they normally only do C-sections, so they were very not prepared for like natural births. So I tend to believe, if I want to believe they tried their best, but come
Mm.
on, this is not communicating in a respectful way. But in the end, they let me go, and I went home. And then the rest of the day, I just, yeah, I was just there. Contractions, I sent a message to my midwife, and she checked, like, did they do an internal examination? Because sometimes they loosen the membranes when they do that,
Yeah.
to keep, like, to get things going. And I said, no, 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 I didn't do that. So
I
everything
think at
was
that point, just is that important to say that you are allowed to say no,
exactly,
whenever there is a demand for medical acts,
yeah,
and you don't feel comfortable with it, you are always allowed to say no.
yeah.
And I think it's great just to remind that.
Exactly, exactly. And the rest of the day, I had contractions on and off. I went shopping with my oldest just to get some distraction. We went
Mm.
making pancakes. That evening, I put
Oh,
him
so
to
nice.
bed. We watched a movie, and the contractions were there, but they were slowly, like, was good. And then we also decided, like, okay, I think this is gonna happen. So we booked a ticket for the midwife, but the tickets were only available the next morning. So she arrived, she was supposed to arrive the next morning. So I went into that night having contractions, then stronger, not strong, stronger, not strong. Slept for a few hours, and then in the morning around 8, the midwife arrived and my doula.
Mm. Okay.
And she did some regular checkups, like listening to the baby's heartbeat. Everything was fine. She did some blood pressure checkup with me, everything. And then she said, like, yeah, well, it looks like labor is starting, but it hasn't really started yet. Like, the
Hasn't
real
kicked off like
deal
the real
has
deal,
to
yeah.
come. So,
But at that point, how did you feel? Because you had this really bad hospital experience that I guess shocked you a little bit.
yeah.
So when the midwives arrived, were you feeling relieved, or were you still a bit scared, or like what was the state of mind?
I felt really relieved that the midwife was there. I felt safe because I was like, okay, now everything's going to be all right. But I also checked with her, like, okay, if I'm not going to give birth one of these days, what are you going to do? You know, you can't stay on the island forever if it's not going to, like,
Yeah,
push
it
through.
can take time. Yeah.
And she said, no worries, I will come back. I said, okay.
Wow, I love it.
Okay, okay.
She looks like
So,
a very chill midwife.
yeah, yeah, she was chill. That's what I needed. So, yeah, that day we just chilled out. My son went to the babysitter. My husband and I went for a long drive, and it was really relaxed. We reflected on the pregnancy, and it really felt like our last day of being pregnant. So
Mm.
that was cool. And in the evening, my son came back, and I had still not very strong contractions, and the midwife made me like some, yeah, mix of essential oils. And she said, okay, you can go in the tub later and use that. So my husband got me some spicy Indian food because you never know if it works.
Yeah, at that point, you
I
just
put
want to try
my
everything, right?
I put my son to bed in the evening. He was getting the Indian food, and boom, the oxytocin
That
hit
worked.
me when I was cuddling him
Wow.
to sleep, and I was like, like putting him to bed. I was
Yeah,
lying
the
next to him,
spice is
cuddling him. Yeah. That's what I needed. I think that's what I needed, just some cuddles and some relaxation. I, ate the Indian food, got into the tub, and I told my husband, "You go to bed now because you need to get some sleep. I can handle this on my own if there's nothing going on tonight. You had a peaceful night. If not, I can wake you up and you had some sleep because you need it as well."
You know, I find it very funny. A lot of moms told me that story, and I actually have the same experience. The first thing we think is, go to sleep and rest.
Yeah,
That's the first thing we say to our husbands.
yeah. But I
Isn't it
also
funny,
wanted
you
to
know?
be alone.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think
Everyone
I was
wants to
like,
be in our
"What God
meditative
is wrong?"
state. That's
Yeah.
funny.
So around 1 a.m., during the night, I felt the contractions were like getting really stronger. I was listening to a birth playlist. I'm not really like into like very like mellow songs, so I had like some good techno and some good like rock songs, songs that remind me of good times, going out with friends and everything.
Nice. That's
And
that's a little party in your room.
Oh, I loved it. I had my headphones on and I was like totally partying there on the contractions. So then I woke my husband up around 1 and he called the midwife and the doula. They were staying together in the doula's house. And 10 minutes later, they were already there. They were setting up the birth pool. And from there, things happened fast. So I went in the birth pool, out the birth pool, in the birth pool, out the birth pool. I had strong back labor, like I had with my first. So the midwife kept putting warm water over my back when I was in the pool, and that was really good. What also really worked was sitting on the toilet.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because it sounds strange maybe, but that is the space where you have to relax.
Yeah.
And I really like that, like leaning forward on the toilet and until like 4 or 5, until 5 my water hadn't broken yet, and I really felt like that was needed to keep the progression going. But my midwife
Mm.
said, "No, no, we're not gonna do that. Let nature do its thing. There's a reason why your water hasn't been broken yet." And she also encouraged me to feel my own dilation. She said, "I never check pregnant women." So that was really nice. I felt really confident, and it felt really empowering to feel like the baby's head, and yeah, that was really cool.
So at that point, because the water hadn't broken, but you could still feel that the head was there.
Yeah, yeah, you felt like a large bulb as well. Yeah.
Wow.
And then I really felt like my water needed to break to progress. So I sat on the toilet and all of a sudden, bang!
Bam.
Yeah, all the water fell into the toilet and the
Wow.
midwife ran to me, the doula and my husband, because they thought it was such a loud bang. They thought the baby
The
fell in the
baby was in
toilet.
the toilet. Imagine. This
So
is
the
how
lights
you
went
were
on and
born.
I started laughing. I was in my bubble, but I started laughing. I was like, "No, no, 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 just my water broke." "Okay." And then the calm returned again.
That's really
And
funny.
then things happened really quickly. I went into the tub, but I fell asleep for a little bit. Then I woke up again. This was like really the transition phase. And in that transition phase, I was also like, oh my God, this is gonna rip me apart from like total calmness until like every emotion passed by.
Mm. Do
Until
you feel like you went to this, that phase that we read a lot about, like desperation phase, like
yeah,
I'm not going to be able to
yeah,
do it. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I kinda begged my husband for this to be the last birth I was doing. "This is gonna be the last, right?
Please.
I would ever have to do this again." And now I wanna do it 10 times more, but hey. Um,
Yeah, that's the magic
uh,
of nature.
yeah, that's really cool. And then at a certain point, the midwife saw that I was fully dilated. Then you have like a purple line above your buttocks. So she saw I was fully dilated, but I was exhausted. And that phase was actually really cool because I didn't have any contractions anymore, but my body wasn't ready to push. So I
Mhm.
fell asleep
Okay,
on
wow.
the edge of the tub, but also in the hands of the doula, like with my face like in her hands. I just fell asleep, like,
Oh,
I
wow.
think for like 20 minutes. And then I woke up and I was like, okay, let's go. Yeah.
It's amazing how the body
Yeah.
takes every single minute to rest. Like,
Yeah.
we like when you're doing the prep for birth, they tend to say that like between the contraction, even if it's 1 minute,
Yeah.
you are able to fall asleep and to have some rest for
Yeah.
your body. And it's amazing to know that in the middle of the labor and you're
Yeah.
almost like at the end, but still you can sleep 20 minutes. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and it was really needed because I was, like, super tired. Um, in the meanwhile, the midwife lighted the fireplace, so it was really warm in the room, and then I started pushing, and at first I wanted to push by myself because I was so done with it. I really wanted to get
Yeah.
that baby out, but she said, "No, just wait for the reflex." Okay, quickly breaking into the episode here to make something clear. When you push yourself by yourself, you're actively bearing down using your abdominal muscles, and that can create more pressure than necessary and increase the risk of tearing. The Ferguson reflex is when your body starts pushing on its own, triggered by the baby's head pressing against the pelvic floor. You don't have to do anything, it just happens. Just happens naturally. And that natural reflex leads to a much more gradual and gentle delivery because your body knows exactly when and how hard to push. Simply put, pushing yourself is you doing the work, and the reflex is your body doing the work. So I did, and I think after like 15 minutes, she got out. And I was on hands and knees. Like when I was in between contractions, pushing contraction, I was in hands and knees.
Were you in the bathtub at
Yeah,
that point?
it was
Yeah.
in the top at that point. So I was on hands and knees. And when I really needed to push, I needed more power. So I was sitting up on my knees.
Okay.
So that's how she came out. And when she came out, I could see her on the water and then take her out immediately.
Oh,
Yeah, and that
wow.
was the best moment. She was really calm. She took her time, and I knew that. Like you get to know your baby a little bit in your belly, and she was so different than from my oldest. My oldest, like he came out with a bang, you know. But she was like really calm and was really zen. And we stayed in the tub for a while, and
Oh.
then I got out, and she immediately starting to look for the boob, and so she latched on. The midwife took her time to check my tears. Well, I had some minor tears, probably because I wanted to push by myself.
Yeah, yeah.
But hey, it was all for a good cause. And yeah, she did some stitches, and I took a shower. We could cuddle in bed. While I was, by the way, breastfeeding, I was just out of the tub. My son woke up because he was sleeping through all of it. So
It was
like,
actually my question, like, because your
yeah,
son was in the house, and I think
yeah,
for the humbers, it's something that sometimes the parents are a bit skeptical, like, what's happening if
yeah.
they're waking up?
I really wanted to have him there at birth, but my husband was a bit hesitant. Like, what if this? What if this? But I think if we do it another time, if we do it another time, I want them there, the kids, and
Yeah.
I think it was really nice. And he woke up like 1 hour 15 minutes after his sister was born, and he was amazed by it, and it was totally
Wow.
normal for him as well.
Yeah, and
It
the
was super
meeting must
normal.
have been really, really sweet.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Yeah, he was there with a stuffed animal, and he was, like, in his pajamas and like, "Ah, why is there a bathtub in the living room?"
Are we doing some kind of party?
Yeah. Yeah, so that was really, really, really nice and really relaxed, and, during, like, the first days postpartum, we didn't have any visitors. That was, yeah, that was what we chose for. Only the doula came by a few times, and then after 6 days, we could fly home. It's a very short plane ride to Santa Maria,
And
only
how
15 minutes.
like, if you had to compare your first burst and the second one, what do you think, felt differently?
That's a really good question. I think with the first, I was overwhelmed by the whole feeling of like contractions and everything, and but the second, I knew I could do it.
Hmm.
And sometimes I watch this program, and it's called I don't know the exact name in English, but it's like kind of Survivor, but then for like people who want to join the military, and they do like this
Okay.
2 week super intense
Like a boot
program.
camp, yeah.
Yeah. And one of the leaders of the group once said, if you don't think you can do it anymore, if you think you're out, you're only on 40%. So you're not on your 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I that was my mantra during birth. And also, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. Tonight, I have the baby in my arms. No problem. We're not in a rush. We're
Yeah.
not in a rush. And that was my mantra also for like the whole postpartum period, like up until 1 year. Because
Yeah.
my baby wasn't sleeping a lot during the night. She wanted to breastfeed a lot. And that was hard, but it also made it so much easier to give into it and just take your time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a surrender. I think
Yeah,
this word
exactly.
is very precious when you're in that phase of postpartum and
Exactly.
yeah, with all the new things, new feelings, new and lack of sleep, unfortunately, but that goes with obligation.
Unfortunately. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it was such a beautiful humber story and also unexpected at the beginning because that was not part of the initial
No,
plan. But I
no.
also love how you stood up for yourself, how you trust also in your capacity, in your own body. Maybe it's sometimes easier when you already have had a first birth,
I think so, yeah.
but being able also to really stand to that choice, I think that's amazing because at the end, it all turned out beautifully. And
Yeah.
did you ever spoke again with the doctors from the hospital?
Never.
Okay.
Never. No. No, of course I talked to the doctors here in the Centre de Saúde because it's a small island and everybody knows each other. And they were not a big fan of the whole situation, but they said, "Oh, it's because of the hospital caught fire." And I tried to explain, well, it's not only that, but it's about a women's autonomy, and it's about trusting your own body, and it's about different things than only like um not wanting to go to the hospital. So, yeah.
Beautiful. So that's Irene's story. Thanks so much for listening to it. We really hope it stays with you, and not because it's exceptional, but more because Irene chose to follow her own guidelines instead of others. She trusted herself, and also she was held by an incredible network of women, including a midwife who got on a plane just for her. That's what becomes possible.
Yeah, and if you're pregnant right now or planning to be, I really want you to know that your birth doesn't have to look like anyone else. It just has to feel like yours, and it especially has to feel safe.
Exactly. In the next episode, we call in the midwife who was there that night during the birth of Irene's second child. This is Raquel Cajaon, that flew from Lisbon and who sat quietly in the corner and barely touched a thing. And that she will tell you was exactly the point.
Yes, see you next time. Thanks for listening to Born to Be Wild, the podcast. If you want to continue the conversation, you can find us on Instagram at borntobewild.pt and birth mode. We would love to hear from you.
All sources and references mentioned in this episode are in the show notes below. And if you enjoy this episode, of course, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. It's really the best way to help us grow. See you next time!